Hey, good morning. Hope everybody's doing well. So, I want to talk about something today that I'm very passionate about, extremely passionate about, and it's about health, preventive medicine, health. And I'm really glad that within the last few months, this year, with the establishment of going back to the start of the year, with the establishment or the appointment rather of RFK Jr. as the head of the Health and Human Services, he has really been kind of running on this whole campaign going back to last year's election on making America healthy again. That's what he's really passionate about as well, and he has a long personal professional history of advocacy towards preventive medicine, health, things like that. So when he took on the helm of this role, then basically there was a commission that was established that released a report called Make America Healthy Again. And in that report that was released a few months ago, and you can find it on the HHS.gov website, just Make America Healthy Again, you'll see the report that was released. It is a 73-page report. It's basically a solid breakdown of a conversation that's been going on for a while, but needs to continue and needs to be increased. And it's essentially how to make America healthier again and how to help our children be healthy. And it was just a very strong, solid, consolidated report covering a lot of facets of this conversation that, again, just needs to be enhanced. It needs to be taken more seriously. I'm going to say the most important thing now of this whole thing. I'm going to take about 10 minutes talking about this, but the most important thing I'm going to say in the next 10 seconds is it's not what you know, but what you do. People know what you're supposed to eat, but they don't do it because they don't want to. People know that they should exercise. They know they should quit smoking. They know that they should moderate a lot of consumption on certain things. They know that they should live a more active lifestyle. They know they should manage their stress. They know they should manage their stress more effectively. That there's a lot of things people know they should do, but it's hard to do it in today's high tech, busy world, and especially in American life and modern American society right now. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this report and then share some things from 47 from a lot of years of personal experience as a medical professional and as a health promotion advocate. I was so I'm going to talk a little bit about my background and how I'm so connected to this issue, and why I'm passionate about it, and how I've been trained in this issue. So, like a lot of people who grew up in the 80s, a kid of the 80s, right? We grew up. I think video games are starting to come out in a lot of homes. I know the Ataris were popular, and I know video arcades were coming out, and that was kind of the a point in the pre-digital age where people started paying attention, spending more time in front of screens, not just TVs, but video games, things like that. But it was nothing like it is today. We went out to the yard, we played football, we went to the alley, we did things outside. We spent a lot of time outside. I did, at least. And from a young age, as a teenager, I played a lot of sports at school. I grew up in West Texas. Sports was compulsory. It was the main part of PE. And within the school year, we played volleyball, basketball, football, softball. It was sports for PE. But it was very robust, the culture. And I'm sure it was that way in a lot of places as well in that time in the 80s. And then going into my teenagers, I started lifting weights and running at a very young age. I boxed as a teenager. I played, Pop Warner football, like my older brother, and one of my siblings as well. There was like three of us that played a lot of sports within my family. And as I grew older and then joined the military, I was always physical training was always something I really enjoyed and was always passionate about. And within my naval career, I specialized in medicine. I was a hospital corpsman, and sometime later on within my career, about 8 or 9 years into my career, I chose to specialize in preventive medicine, Navy preventive medicine. Now, and I'm saying all this basically to kind of transition into the report. Preventive medicine in general is a very broad field that I would say really is kind of broken down into two different categories. It's the environmental health, industrial hygiene, kind of keeping population healthy, preventive medicine, and then there's also clinical preventive medicine, what we call health promotion, diet, exercise, nutrition. When you come into the doctor, they do lab work. They test your blood levels for certain things, risk factors. They check your weight. They monitor they check your vital signs, your blood pressure, pulse, and then they put all that together and tell you, if you're healthy or how healthy you are, what are some risk factors. And they also talk about your diet, nutrition, and what are you eating? That's kind of clinical preventive medicine, and then that leads into other conversations because based on those findings, the clinical findings, and they'll recommend lifestyle changes. to exercise more, to reduce certain things, or to eat more, maybe medications for certain things, right? But on the other side, the environmental health side, which is more like the military side, and it's also more of the industrial side, they pay attention to environmental risk factors that can contribute to somebody's well-being. And when we say risk factors, we're talking about air quality, food quality, the chemicals in the air and the environment specifically. So, for example, and it's very broad, but I'll give you a specific example on a naval vessel. There's a lot of environmental, industrial potential hazards and risks one may be exposed to, whether it's noise levels, heat stress indexes, certain chemicals that people are working on, and not just in the military, but that exists in any industrial environment. People who are working as welders, as construction workers, anybody who's working in industrial fields, there's ergonomic concerns. There's reasons that people wear masks for certain types of work. So anybody who's working out there in a robust physical engineering, industrial construction type environment is exposed to different risks and potential health hazards. So that is the environmental health industrial side of it. Preventive medicine journal. So that's what we studied, and it was just really all slammed into 8 months of training. And just gave the keys to my wife. She's got to go to church, and I'm going to go too. So basically, that's preventive medicine. Now, I'm very passionate about that, and even though I retired a few years ago, that's something I've really continued the conversation on. Moving into the report, let's really break this down and zero in. Families, people, us, we want to be healthier. We really do want to be healthier. We want our kids to be healthier. We see the future, and we don't want anything to get in the way of them living a healthy life, a healthy, productive life. And that's what the report really focuses on. It focuses on a lot of the things that are out there, the food and drug industry, corporate interests that are affecting the kind of food that we eat. So I just really recommend you read it. The purpose of me speaking with you is to take the time to read that report, take a look at it, and just really take a lot out of it because it's very interesting. Trust me, it'll be worth your time. Some of the stuff you may already know, some of the stuff you may not be too familiar with, but it'll really connect the dots, illuminate a lot of concerns and possible suspicions, and then force you and help you to think in order to make better decisions. I'm going to share something with you about the American lifestyle and the American diet and American health in general. Is I lived in, I call these the 10 years. I spent a lot of time overseas in different places at different times, but I talk about 10 years that I spent specifically living in 3 different countries. I was in Japan for 5 years, Okinawa for 2, Yokosuka for 3, Italy for 2 years, and Spain for 3 years. This is a really popular Japanese coffee, by the way. And I say that because I paid a lot of attention. I paid a lot of attention to how they eat, live. I live there, so I went to the grocery stores. Made a lot of friends we made friends with a lot of families and people. We were just really ingrained in every component of society, living amongst a lot of friends that we made in all those countries. And their diet, their lifestyle, there's a reason it is honestly a lot better than ours. When you look at lists of the healthiest nations in the world, and most of the ones that are in the top 20 or 30 are obviously industrialized nations for various reasons. But the United States of America consistently ranks anywhere between 20 to 30 in the 20 to 30s of the healthiest nations on earth. We can do better. We can do a lot better than that. But consistently within the top 10, there's 3 countries that are usually always bouncing around within the top 10, and it's Japan, Italy, and Spain. There's other nations in there that are always kind of in there, South Korea, other nations that are close to the Mediterranean, Chile, that are in those categories, in that list of the top 10 because of various factors. But it's always going to boil down to lifestyle, food, and other things that mitigate stress levels amongst the populous society. Now, one of the biggest reasons for that is because of the food that they eat. It's just a lot healthier. It's filled with less additives. It's less than UPFs, ultra processed food. That's a very technical conversation that the report includes. But the bottom line is that the American food that we eat is high in sugar, fat, starch, sodium, and it's highly processed. And it's highly processed because there's a lot of money, people making a lot of money on making this fast, quick energy food that makes us unhealthy, and they're making a lot of money. And that's kind of the second most important 15 seconds of it. That's what they do. They make a lot of money on a very poor diet that feeds us, and we're buying it, and that's resulting in the health outcomes that we have. Whereas other nations, those corporate interests that are just not as robust as they are here in the United States. And that's why people eat healthier food. They eat food that's just less in UPFs and just higher in organic content, strong macronutrients, healthy fruits, vegetables. When I went to the grocery store in a lot of these places, you could just see it in the quality of the meat and chicken. I know a lot of food people out there, people who know, a lot of people who are in the health industry know this, know that when you can see the quality of food, you can see how the chicken and the beef is made, and if it's been injected with certain types of hormones, things like that. But that is an important thing to be mindful of. Now, we're doing better, thank goodness, because there's been a lot of programs that have been implemented in the last few years that are making our food healthier. That's the good news. But we can do better. We can still do a lot of better. So it's just a conversation that I think we need to continue to have. Again, it's not what we know, but it's what we do. There's a lot of things within the report that I didn't even touch on that are pretty important and pretty heavy, talking to specifically the digital content that kids pay attention to, and the medical, the over medicalization, as it's called. That's another thing that's it's in there. I definitely recommend you reading it. I could talk about it, but I don't want to throw too many opinions about that. That's something I recommend you read for yourself and just take in. And I think it'd be really enlightening. My personal expertise is more about food and exercise. But basically, what I'm trying to say is I'm just trying to encourage anybody out there that if you're doing good, if you're healthy, if you're working out, you're exercising, good on you, because I think you're maximizing. Statistics always show that if you train and if you eat healthy, it's not the most. It can be hard, right? Especially the older you get. But statistically, you're always increasing the possibility of living healthier. As you get older, and that's what we want to do, right? We want to live healthy lives. We don't want to work really hard until we get to a certain age, and then the body breaks where we can't enjoy our kids and our grandkids and things like that. You want to go into your 50s, 60s, 70s, living as healthy as you can be. And that's the most important thing, is take care of your body, your brain. That's important. That was a gift from God. Health is a gift from God, and it's our job to steward that gift properly. All right, so I just wanted to share those things with you. Again, it's the HHS website, www.hhs healthandhumanservices.gov, and just go in there and just go where it says the MAHA report. And again, I just recommend you reading it because I think it's really interesting. All right. Take care. God bless, guys, and have a great week.